Okay, it's really important, this page in the textbook has some really important information that I'd like to explain further. When to pass arguments by reference and when to pass arguments by value. It can be a little bit confusing. In the example that you just saw, I used one reference parameter, in essence returning one value. You really shouldn't do that. If you're just returning one thing, you should be using a value returning function. So let's just kind of go over this here. All right. When an argument's constant, you have to pass it, by value. You can't pass constants as reference parameters, so that's important. When a variable should not have its value changed, so it should always be passed by value. That protects it from being altered. So if you're just writing a display function, for instance, you should be using value parameters. You're not changing them when you're displaying them. When one value needs to be sent back from a function to the calling routine or the calling program, it should be returned with a return statement rather than using one reference parameter. When two or more variables passed as arguments to a function need to have their values changed by that function. So if you're writing a function and you need to send two things back or three things back or more things back, you should be using reference parameters, because when you use a return statement, you only can return one thing back. When a copy of the argument cannot reasonably or correctly be made, such as when it's a file, and we'll see this example coming up soon, files need to be reference parameters. Okay. So three common instances when reference parameters are used. When the values being input in a function need to be known by the calling function. So like if you're getting three pieces of information from the user in a function and it needs to go back to the main program, that's a good example of where to use three reference parameters. When a function must change existing values in the calling function, right? We've already talked about if you're going to update a value that needs to be sent back to main, and we'll see an upcoming example when you have files. Okay, so this is a really important page in the notes and gives you some guidelines of when to use value parameters, when to use reference parameters, and when to use value returning functions.